The story of Saint Margaret of Antioch.
Subscribe to our channel to receive more content like this.
Let me tell you the story of a young woman whose courage still inspires people today. A story filled with faith, bravery, and even a dragon. This is the story of Saint Margaret of Antioch. Our story begins a long time ago, around the 3rd century, in a place called Antioch, which is in modern-day Turkey. Margaret was just a young girl, but her life was anything but ordinary. She was born into a wealthy pagan family. Her father was a priest of the Roman gods, people who worshipped many gods instead of the one true God. But Margaret didn't follow in her father's footsteps. As a child, she was raised by a Christian nurse who taught her about Jesus Christ, his love, his teachings, and his sacrifice. Margaret believed in Jesus with all her heart and chose to become a Christian, even though it was dangerous. Back then, being a Christian wasn't safe. The Roman Empire didn't like people who refused to worship their gods or their emperor. Christians were often arrested, tortured, and even killed. But Margaret didn't hide her faith. She wore it proudly. When her father found out she had become a Christian, he was furious. He couldn't believe his daughter would turn her back on the gods he served. In anger and shame, he disowned her, cast her out of his home. Imagine that. A young girl, likely only a teenager, left to survive on her own because she chose to follow Christ. So Margaret went to live in the countryside, working as a shepherdess, taking care of sheep. She lived simply, quietly, and faithfully. But her peace didn't last long. One day, a powerful Roman official named Olybrius passed by and saw Margaret. He was struck by her beauty and wanted to marry her. But when he learned she was a Christian, he gave her a cruel choice: deny your faith and marry me, or suffer the consequences. Margaret refused. She told him boldly, "I belong to Christ. I will not deny him, not for comfort, not for power, not even for my life." Olybrius was furious. He had her arrested, hoping he could force her to change her mind. But Margaret stood firm. So, like many Christians at the time, she was put on trial and then tortured, beaten, burned, and thrown into prison. But even in prison, her spirit remained unshaken. And then comes the part of her story that many people remember most, the strange and powerful moment involving a dragon. According to legend, while Margaret was praying in her prison cell, a great dragon appeared before her, horrifying and fierce. But Margaret did not run. She made the sign of the cross, called on the name of Jesus, and the dragon vanished. Some versions say the dragon swallowed her whole, but she tore her way out of its belly through her faith and God's power. Now, whether this part is symbolic or a miracle, the message is clear. Margaret faced her fears head on and triumphed through faith. After all the torture and trials, Olybrius gave her one final chance to deny her faith and save herself. But once again, Margaret said no. So, on that day, she was sentenced to death. And though it was a tragic end, Margaret faced it with peace and courage, knowing she had remained faithful to her Lord. She died a martyr, someone who gives their life for what they believe in. She was only a teenager, yet she showed the strength of a giant. Over the centuries, her story spread throughout the Christian world. People were inspired by her bravery, her devotion, and her unshakable faith. She became one of the most beloved saints, especially among women and girls who looked to her as a model of purity and courage. Even Joan of Arc, the famous warrior saint of France, said that Saint Margaret was one of the saints who appeared to her in visions and gave her strength. Saint Margaret's story is more than just a tale from long ago. It's a reminder that truth, love, and faith are worth living for and worth dying for.